let's talk about iPad, because
Yep.
we have now had our iPads for 3-ish weeks.
Three, yeah.
Three? I think it's 3 weeks now. Wow, I can't believe it. Where does the time go? And we have both got the iPad Pro 13-inch.
Yep.
How much memory did you go for?
I went for the 512 because
Okay.
it's a bit of a jump down in processor speed because it's the binned chip, so I have one less than you.
It's not though.
No, I mean it's I don't know. I don't know the difference in terms of usability. I've not tried the 1 terabyte one. Listen, it's a lovely device, and I'm very happy with it. In 99% of all aspects of it, I'm very happy with. There's one I'm not, which I'll come to later on. But no, it's a lovely device. I have an M1 Mac on my desk upstairs and an M4 iPad, so it's quite interesting to see the difference in what you can do with them. But it's great.
I just realised actually, I've got I've got a flush. Did I call it a flush in poker? Right here, because I'm cheating because Carolina's desk is next to me, but I've got an M1 Pro MacBook Pro, which I haven't opened for a couple months because you remember the one that got the latte? Yeah. I'm hoping it's now just dried out. M1 Pro MacBook Pro. We've got an M2 Pro Mac Mini. Then I've got an M3 MacBook Air and an M4 iPad Pro. And there are people that are watching this or listening to this right now saying, "A wanker."
The thing is, what's really interesting is they're not equatable in terms of speed because
they're not.
You can't just assume that your M4 iPad is 4 times faster than your M1 Mac because of the way the operating systems work and the way they've been designed and the way the apps work with the device. It's very hard to benchmark them against each other.
And it's also what they're doing because the M4 was put into the iPad because of the tandem OLED display. Yeah. Because part of that was it needed the extra grunt to be able to drive that display.
People were hoping, weren't they? They were hoping that with the M4 processor they could actually have 2 separate screens attached to their iPad. And what they don't realise is they already have 2 separate screens. Not really. It's not kind of how it works. But yes, I mean, the screen is unbelievable. And when you're watching Apple TV content, and I watched Sugar, the series with Colin Farrell, which is excellent and a real surprise, actually. Better than it's shot so beautifully. It looks just so amazing. And I watched the entire series on my iPad rather than my TV because it just looks so much better. I don't have an OLED TV.
What was the iPad that you had before? Did you have an iPad Pro with a mini LED display?
No, I had the iPad Pro 2020, the one before that.
Ah, okay.
So I've had quite a jump from in quality, really. I think perhaps less so for you.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, it's just because it's the first OLED iPad I've had. The iPhone 10 was OLED, so this is the first OLED iPad I've had, and it's just a revelation, really. I still remember years ago when the first flat screen TVs came out, and they started to tout this new technology called OLED, and they could only make these screens at sort of like tiny, sort of like Pro Max size because it was such an expensive technology. And now that where we are, I mean, it's still quite expensive, but much more affordable for what you're looking for. So no, it's really good. Really, really, the screen is amazing. And really quick and responsive.
I'm looking at the screen now, and it is stunning. I mean, I was on a ticket website earlier for our local theatre because a few famous comedians, they tend to do their work in progress material at our local theatre before they go on national tours and stuff up here in Finchley. And I think I clicked on a link for Omid Jalili, and then I turned round while it was loading to Carolina. This is only a split second because the Wi-Fi on these things is so fast. We've got a Wi-Fi 6E set up in the house, and this has got the Wi-Fi 6 router thingy built into it. You can tell we're lay people, or I am anyway. John's smarter than me, or more technical even, and smarter. Both. So I turned back to the screen, and they'd used a very high-resolution photo of him on a black background. Yeah. And I turned back to the screen, I almost dropped my bloody iPad, because I was like, oh my God, it literally looked like his face was coming out at me. It really does pop. So, I came...
Sorry, Karen.
No, I was going to say, I came from a mini LED iPad Pro, so really, I know a lot of reviewers online have said that they don't see that much of a jump. But, I think if you appreciate these things, you can see that there is definitely a difference. So John 512, I went for the 1 terabyte with nanotexture. There's a short on my YouTube channel, which you can see from when I was in the Apple store, and I was actually picking up because I ordered the 1 terabyte with the glossy display, standard display. And while I was in there, I got to see the nanotexture display for the first time. And after a lot of debating, I pretty much had the whole of Apple Brent Cross's in-store team around me. And because they'd not really been trained on the product yet, and we were debating it backwards and forwards, and then I decided to pay £100 more and go for nanotexture. And I'm so glad that I did. I've got no regrets whatsoever. On
the very rare day, because I did sit out in my garden on one sunny afternoon, a Sunday, because I know that the new iPad screen is very bright. It's got much higher nits. I think is it 1600 nits now? I have to fact check that.
It will go up to 2000 nits peak brightness.
So it was really good. But the issue I had was I could see the screen, but I could also see all my finger marks and smudges and reflections. Have you tried using it outside on a really bright day?
So I've used it outside, not on a bright day because unfortunately the weather's been shite here in England for the last couple of weeks. But our workroom, which is where I use it the most, has got overhead lamps all over, and they're all fluorescent tubes and all that sort of stuff. And again, I did another video showing patches in inverted commas on my screen, and I do show the lamps that are ahead, so you know that I'm not making it up. The difference for me is that there's just no reflection on the screen. Just no reflection. My standard iPad display I had the M1 iPad Pro, which had mini LED, and that it was embarrassing to put it in front of customers because I'd forget to clean it and it'd just be full of fingerprints. It was like COVID-19 was living on the glass. Whereas with this one, it's just, you see when it's off, it's got little smudge marks, but it's not like fingerprint city. Like, you know, I don't feel like the police wouldn't even need to lift a fingerprint off. They could just take a photograph and run it through their database and arrest me. So that from a sort of visual hygiene point of view has been great because it doesn't really smudge. The reflection thing or the no reflection thing has just been amazing. When I put this in front of a customer, because usually we're sat, you know, sort of either opposite each other or usually sort of aside each other, but then we're each looking at the screen from a 45-degree angle either side. And very often we end up meeting in the middle because neither of us can see anything because there's so much reflection off the glass. Whereas with this, it looks... I mean, I'm looking at mine right now, and it doesn't matter what angle I turn it. I've got very, very bright lights here in front of me, and I've got nothing behind me. But it doesn't matter what angle I turn it, it just doesn't change at all. It's just like a static display. How does it work in terms of, because it comes with a cloth, doesn't it? Do you find you have to be a bit more careful in cleaning it more regularly? Because I would imagine if it's well, there must be pits in the screen, or there must be sort of a texture to the screen which could pick up dirt more than a gloss screen. Does that happen or not? Do you know? Maybe. I've got no idea about that. Yeah. I think people have been over exaggerating the pits in the screen. One of my viewers made a comment on the video. He asked about it, and he said that he'd read a review or something or a comment from someone else who said that after a day of using his iPad Pro with nanotexture, that his index finger was raw. And I don't even know how that's possible, because first of all, what the hell are you doing using your finger constantly for a whole day on an iPad screen? But also, I mean, I'm running my finger down the screen now. It doesn't really feel, you know, it feels a little bit more tactile than the standard glossy display, which is literally like glass. If you run your fingernail down it, maybe it feels different to glass. Only very slightly. It's very, very slight. And does it feel like a lot of people pay money for these screen covers that give you a more papery texture? Does it feel more papery than glass as well? So I used a paper-like screen protector on my previous iPad. I hated it because it kind of made the screen look a bit grey and washed out. So watching movies on it wasn't really fun. Yeah. But that did make it feel more like paper. When you took that screen cover off on a standard iPad display, it feels like you're running plastic against glass. Yeah. This is weird. I don't know why. Obviously, it's because of the nanotexture treatment. But this just naked, using the pencil with it, I've not even thought, do I need a screen protector to make this feel more paper-like? It is an absolute joy to write, to sketch, to draw on this thing. It's amazing. Like,
which you do a lot of.
I can't tell you how happy I am that I made that decision. Really,
it's also, I mean, in terms of ergonomics, because I'm just now you can now see behind the scenes here that my background isn't moving with me, but I'm picking my device up off its Magic Keyboard, and it's so thin and light that, I mean, for the first time, even my daughter went, "Ooh, that's thin." So I remember my previous iPad, when you take it off the Magic Keyboard, especially if it's on your lap or it's next to your bed on the bedside table, I tend to pull the iPad off from one corner and lift it up. And what happened quite a lot was the weight of the other iPad would cause the other corner to drop and slam down on the keyboard when I removed it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done the same. And that doesn't happen with this one now, because you can hold it in one corner with your fingers. And so that thinness is pretty impressive. And I haven't yet bought my last one. I bought a folio cover for it as well. And I haven't.
Oh my God, it is thin. Yeah. It's thinner than an iPad Mini.
Yeah, but I haven't been using a folio with it, which seems a bit weird since it's thinner, because it's such a nice device without it. I tend to dock it in the keyboard when I'm not using it and keep it closed and protected. And now if I'm wandering around the house with it, or propping it up against the window when I do the washing up, so I can watch something whilst I'm washing up, all that sort of thing. It's just such an easy device to move around, and I almost feel like it's the device that Steve Jobs wanted to reveal the first time round when he was on his sofa reading on his lap. That this was what he was aiming for. My only negative is the volume controls. They really, really bug me.
Is it because when you flip it, they change round?
Yeah. Like every other device I have, when you flip it round, and also when you flip it, they change. And I can see what they're trying to do. It's trying to match a certain direction. It just really bugs me. I'm getting used to it now, but it's really weird.
But do you think, John, that's because it makes sense, right? It's like, because I'm the same as you. Every single time I'm like, oh God, I've turned it down instead of up. Now I'm getting used to it, because it's
get used to it.
It's volume up, right?
Yeah.
It's muscle memory, because I've had an iPad since year one, which was 2009, 2010?
Yeah, I got one of the early ones as well.
Yeah, so you've been using an iPad for like 13, 14 years, and all of a sudden
it's just like
it's a muscle memory thing. You'll work your way out of that.
Yeah.
But the great thing though with volume is, who cares anyway, because you've got it all in the function row on your Magic Keyboard.
I know. I keep forgetting that. I'm doing it now. Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
How much did you have the Magic Keyboard with your previous iPad?
Yeah.
Question one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How much of a difference have you found, although it's been slight changes because you now have aluminium on top rather than fabric, you now have the function row of keys. How much of a difference has that been for you? Has it been, it's all right? Or has it been, oh my God, this is a game changer?
I do love having instant audio controls while I'm working. I can just play my music. I can just literally quite often I'll play a large playlist that I'm shuffling. And if I don't like a track, I can just tap it forward. I have sometimes accidentally locked the screen with the lock button on the far right, because it's not a button I'm used to having even on the Mac. And I like the brightness controls. There are actually hidden away in the settings. You can change the brightness of the keyboard as well, which I didn't know before.
Can you?
I would say, in all honesty, I love the extra controls, but I don't think I'd be that bothered if they weren't there. Does that make sense? I think I got so used to them not being there. For me, the biggest change I love is just the feel of the aluminium under your palms when you're typing. The keyboard's a much more premium feel. It's much nicer because, again, it feels a bit thinner as well. It's more laptopy because you've got less of that kind of chin underneath. The downside is when I'm using this on my lap in bed, it tips forward much more often, because they've tried to balance out the extra lightness by pushing it back a little bit. And so I do find that as a laptop, it's not a great laptop. It's much more of a desk device. But I've got no problem with that, because I would say 99% of the time I don't use it on my lap. I do like the new hinge on it, and the way the USB-C fixes in, the way it flips around. That's quite cool. It's a lovely device, and my wife's very happy that she's got my cast-offs now as well. She's got her own keyboard as well. But I'm just trying to think what the iPad sounds great as well. It's really good sound when you're playing out loud. It just sounds
Magic,
in 2020.
not as good as the last version, no. I have to say.
Is it not?
No, the M1 and the M2 iPads The sound on those was amazing. This is fine if you've got it in the keyboard cover because you've got a bit of something for it to vibrate against.
Yeah.
But naked on its own compared to the previous gen, not quite the same. But it's still great for such a thin device. Don't get me wrong, I'm not slagging it off. It's just not quite as good. For me, the Magic Keyboard is a game changer. Like,
it's lovely.
When I'm using it in Magic Keyboard mode, it's laptop mode for me. Yeah. And being able to not have to keep touching the screen all the time is just brilliant. Just being able to, and also because it feels like my MacBook Air, I'm just, it's like,
Which do you use more familiar. At the moment? Which do you use more, your iPad or your MacBook?
Weirdly, it's been 50-50. I just interchange between them. And I don't, I've only just started thinking about it since you said using it on your lap's a bit awkward. Yeah. So what I do, I've noticed, is that so I use it during the day, so I use it at the workroom and so on, and I take the Magic Keyboard with me, and then on what I'm doing, I might be carrying the tablet on its own, or I'll dock it if I'm doing something, whatever. When it gets home, it moves around the house with me. So at my desk, I'm using my MacBook Air. I might go to the kitchen to do food prep for dinner, and then I'll put Sky News or something and watch some television while I'm cooking at the island, and that'll be on the iPad.
I couldn't do, by the way.
Right.
He couldn't watch Sky when he was young, you see, so you've got your one up in there.
Yeah.
Topical.
Sorry. And then sometimes I'll have to carry on doing a little bit of work, but I'll want to go to the living room to be with Carolina and the dogs and so on. But then I'll put the iPad back on the desk and I'll grab the MacBook Air and I'll just pick up where I left off on the iPad on the MacBook Air, but I'll use the MacBook because it's easier on my lap on the sofa. And then when I've finished in there, then I come back and I put that down, and then I grab the tablet off the stand, and then I go upstairs with it. So it's really funny.
Your
first world
is
problem.
Quite different to mine. Yeah, I tend to use my devices together a lot for. I'm moving it across, like I'm imagining I'm doing it. I tend to use my iPad a lot for continuity now because I'm sure you do the same. I have a lot of things that require two screens at once to be able to work. I'm dragging things across different spreadsheets and things, and all the standard, workplace boring stuff. But it's really lovely for that, just having that space to work in. And the continuity is really good on this, and really reliable.
I've just realised really nice. I can create a mega desk setup because
go across all three.
Well, the thing with the MacBook Air is you can now do dual monitors with it, but you have to have it in clamshell mode.
Yeah.
So what I do is I use my MacBook Air in clamshell mode with my LG 4K monitor and my studio display. Yeah. But I've just realised what I can do is I'm going to use my studio display with my MacBook Air, and then I'm going to put my iPad Pro with my LG display. And then, because I can type with either hand anyway, so it doesn't matter. But then I've got like Mega Desk. It's going to be so cool. I'll have four screens.
So Mega Desk is great. So it seems to me, actually, that you are the perfect candidate for a Vision Pro.
Really? Oh, because of the new update. Because
the new widescreen monitor they've done now, where you curls like beyond your vision. It seems to me that could be your next steps. I'm going to say it now. I'm pretty sure that you're shaking your head, but I'm pretty sure. You've been through this before, Bobby. You're going to get one. I know you are.
I'm not. I'll tell you why I'm not.
Because you don't want Caroline to cut your balls off?
No, it's fine. We just put it for the business. But the reason I'm not, and it would be legitimate, but the reason I'm not is because it's nearly $4,000.
Yeah.
That's why.
We've definitely got the UK tax, haven't we?
Tell me you went on apple.com. You spec one up, didn't you? Yesterday, because I was doing it at the same time as you.
Well, I did it the first time around with it in America. We all know that whatever it costs in America, we have to pay the same in the UK. So it's the United Kingdom pirate tax. We have to pay equivalent amounts. But I mean, it's from what I hear, a lot of people are a bit like with the PlayStation VR, that they loved it to begin with and not using it very often at the moment. I think we're going to be lucky in Europe and that we're going to get a slightly better product on release. But even saying that, I think if I had money to burn and I could find a device where I could sit in my bedroom and close myself off from everyone and watch films on large screens, personally, I'd still get one just for that. Because I love the idea of having that as an entertainment device, but I don't think I can warrant spending two spec'd up iPad M4 1 terabytes with nanotexture screens on a device to strap on my head. So, like anything, it'll, Apple, if it's successful, it'll come down in price and we can wait. But, nice. It'll be a nice gadget to play around with when we see them in the stores.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely want to get my hands on one and play around with it, but it's just. And the other thing as well, what we do is collaborative in a human way. That's what we're about as a business, and I just think strapping I've got as you know, I've got the X-Real Pro 2s.
Which you get a plug-in GPU for that as well.
Yeah, I've got the little iPod. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere around here. But I love that device, but I've barely used it. Why? Because I'm not going to sit there with a pair of glasses on, and then the people that I work with can't actually see what's going on. So what we're actually thinking of doing is actually moving the X-Reels to the workroom. Yeah. This is where there is a use case for Vision Pro, because it would be amazing. And actually, this is how I could get Vision Pro.
Get the clients in with a mirror and some app that shows their body with their clothes on them, so you can see.
No. Before it's made about that. What we're thinking with our shoe, because we design our shoes in a virtual space.
Yeah.
So you get sized, and then we design your shoe together. So what I was thinking is I'd take the X-Reel to the workroom next week. When the clients are in shoe design mode, I actually say to them, put the glasses on.
And then put your shoes on.
Then they get that big 330-inch screen in HD, and then see how they react. I reckon, if that gets the wow factor, we could invest in a Vision Pro as a business. You strap that on your client's head instead. Put them up on Mount Everest or somewhere, or on a racetrack, or by the sea if it's a pair of Sebagos.
What you need to do is you need to get your iPad 4 out. You need to get into Maths Note and write yourself an equation, which works out how many pairs of shoes you need to sell to make it worth buying a Vision Pro, and then that calculation. Then you add a variable in of how soon you can buy it, and plug it all in to see what works out there using Maths Notes.
Yeah.
There you go.
10 pairs of hand grades will do it. I've already worked it. I've already done all the calculations.
I thought you might, yeah.
So going back to 5 minutes ago when you said we know this is going to happen, you've just enabled me. But anyway, back to iPad. So we spent a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, I spent nearly $3,000, like talking about Vision Pro, because I got iPad, keyboard, Pencil Pro. What else did I get? I got a smart folio cover, so I could just use it in that when I'm just walking around to protect it. And then I got Apple Care Plus, so it was like nearly 2,800 quid. Crazy. Yeah. I walked out and I was like, oh my god, what have I just done? But honestly, within a week, I'd forgotten about it. Because I'm so happy with this. This is perfect. So I don't think I'm going to want to change it for a few years. Brilliant. Very happy.
Yeah, me too.
I've got over the whole, because I was very much on the bandwagon of these iPads have got so much processing power that's not being utilised by the OS. I wish they would make iPad OS more like Mac OS, but I'm now kind of changing my view on that.
Well, one thing I noticed when I bought it straight away, when I got it out of the box and it already, and it was all synced with my old iPad and so on, was, and when I'm down in my living room near my router, because I have a 5G router, so the spread's not quite so good in the house. It's good, but it's, my bedroom's fine, obviously, make sure that was correct. But when I came down to the living room, apps install super quick on it, way quicker than the other one. And that's probably because the processing speed, once you downloaded them, it's installing them much more quickly. To the point where it became like, this is like the adverts where it says not real representation of that install. It was really quick. I just went and ran. And that is a tiny little kind of just improvement that makes such a difference. It just makes it easy.
It's the same, by the way, on the M3 MacBook Air.
Right.
And it is the same on the iPhone 15 Pro.
Right.
By the way.
It's a nice process. I'm slowly getting closer to the complete new stuff, but it is lovely just to have those little upgrades and appreciate them. Yeah. I do try and appreciate those things. That's what it's all about when you're a bit of a tech addict like us. But it's a lovely device.
It is. I mean, the whole thing about iPad OS and why I've kind of come around to being a bit more reasonable about it and not wanting to turn my iPad into a MacBook is because, there are situations where the iPad... Okay, so the MacBook is amazing at doing MacBook things. The iPad is great at doing iPad things. The MacBook can't really do a lot of iPad things because you can't draw on it, you can't touch it. Yeah. But I've got the iPad for that. The iPad can do MacBook things. So it does iPad things great. It does MacBook things okay.
I would
and
say
that's fine for me.
Yeah, for me the biggest problem is the Files app. It's a bit of a weird thing, and the file structure on a Mac is way more reliable. It's the file structure on iPad is the only thing that's letting it down. And if they could improve that, which I think they probably will, I wonder at some point if Apple Intelligence will let you sort your files out without going into the Explorer at some point. But you have to have a massive memory for your file names for that. But yeah, I don't know. That's the only. There are some weak areas still, but we kind of, with so many years of using the iPad, we're kind of used to them, aren't we? Really, it's kind of it's a way of thinking. But I agree with you. I'm happy using. I'm recording this on my iPad. You're doing on your MacBook, and straight away you can't do what I can do behind me because you're using it through a Chrome window, and I'm using it through an app. I don't know if that app is installable on the Riverside app on a Mac, but I've got that little extra feature straight. You're like, oh, how do you do that at the beginning of the podcast? So like, it just seemed to work. It just worked, which is kind of what Apple like saying, don't they?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The last thing I'll just kind of leave you with, because some viewers may be hung up on what John said at the start, that he's got the binned chip. Yeah. And yeah, it's true, because I've got the 1 terabyte version, so I've got 16 gigs of RAM, and I've got all cores of graphics.
You've got 10, I've got 9.
Exactly. But that one core doesn't really make much of a difference. There's 2 reasons for that. Number one, let's give the car analogy. If I've got a Mustang that pulls 480 horsepower and John's in a Austin Mini 1 litre that's
Austin
barely
Healey.
got a Mini, not a Healey,
right.
That's barely got 36 horsepower, but we're both driving through central London where you can only drive at 20 miles an hour, the Mini's going to do the job just as well as the Mustang will. So it all depends on what you're actually doing with it. The second thing that I was, and the fact is that most of us are not pushing these devices to their limits. I need to do a Final Cut Pro comparison. I did the longest video edit on the MacBook Air the other day, and the encode it was a 14 gig file, I want to say, and it was about an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes long video, and the encode took about 35-40 minutes. It was the first time I'd literally had to, like, okay, you just do your thing, I'm going to go and do something else, and I'll come back to you later. I want to do a comparison with the M4 iPad, so I will do that soon. The other thing is that there are a lot of app developers that haven't, their apps aren't capable of taking advantage of more than 8 gigs of RAM. So even if you've got 16 gigs sitting there, like I have, a lot of apps are not permitted to use that extra headspace. So it wouldn't make a difference anyway. Now, the only thing at the back of my mind as to why I wanted 16 gigs of RAM is because I was having this debate about the MacBook Air that I bought 2 months ago. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go 512, 16 gigs of RAM. Yeah. I don't need to worry about replacing this thing for a while. And it was kind of the same thinking with the iPad, despite what I've just said. And then the whole nanotexture thing came into the equation. Then I had to go 1 terabyte anyway. But, you know,
I think people aren't aware of that. You can't get the nanotextured iPad in less than a terabyte, can you?
You can't. No, that's it. Yeah. So if you've been liking the sound of what I've been saying about all this, you don't get reflection on the display, etc. You've got to, unfortunately, spend at least $1,900 to get it, which is, when you think about it rationally, is a crazy amount of money to spend on a 13-inch piece of glass and aluminium and copper. It's ridiculous, but that's the world we live in. So, you know, I'm very grateful that I'm able to afford it. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I would have sold a kidney or something, so...
He's not got any left, by the way, folks. No kidneys.
I'm not human.
Supra.
I am literally a cyborg. I've just sold so many body parts. So yeah. So I wouldn't feel too bad about it. My M1 iPad was still fine. It did everything. It flew through everything like a hot knife through butter. But the reason I got rid of it is because it was bloody heavy. And that was the biggest reason for the upgrade for me, was the fact that this thing, I mean, picking it feels easily half the weight of the previous gen with the keyboard. And that makes a big difference to me in my life, because I have to carry a lot of things around every day, including fabric and suits and whatnot. And just having, you know, that 1.8 kilos, I think it was. It doesn't sound like much, but, you know, it's half a small dog.
And you know that.
Yeah. Exactly. I've got 2 of them. So, yeah, there we go. But are you happy 3 weeks later?
Very, very happy with it, yeah. Very happy.
Yeah, good.
I haven't got out of the house with it. I'm too scared to get out of the house with it and don't travel with it, but I will at some point.
Yeah. Did you get Apple Care Plus, or did you not bother?
No, I've got it on my phone, so I'm not paying it twice. I generally, like, the phone's out and about with me more. And the last one I had, I shut my car door.
Yeah, I remember.
That's why I've taken it up and taken it on my Burke. But I tend to be a bit more precious with the iPad Pro. I tend to not, it's my prized possession. So love it.
And so you should be. That's one thing that I've been saying to some of you lately when you've been asking questions about scratching the screen. What's it like? Can you drop, when you drop it? Well, guess what? I've spent a lot of money on it. I'm treating it with respect. And that's what you should do with anything you invest a lot of your hard-earned in.
Go to iFixit and can you blend it for those sort of videos?
I don't know. Is that where they do the teardowns?
Yeah, iFixit. I did actually watch the teardown of the M4 iPad, and it was very interesting. They were very complimentary about how it's improved the insides in terms of accessibility and replacing the batteries and so on, and how it's been strengthened. Because for one of the iPad range, there was an iPad that kept bending people's pockets and things and bags, so it's a lot stronger. And they're impressed with the cooling features inside as well. It kind of has to be cooler because it's more powerful. So yeah. I was it's a good video to watch. The iFixit people are very good.
Yeah, I might post, it depends how good quality the pictures are, but I was in Shard offices yesterday. I haven't sent you the pictures yet. I'll drop them into the Discord for you and Alex, but they've got on display in frames the innards, the original BlackBerry, the iPhone 3G, the Pocket Game Boy, the Nintendo Pocket Game Boy, the Sega Game Gear. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And a couple of other things as well. I took photos for you and Alex because I thought you'd really appreciate it. But I might just put them into a reel.
Isn't there? There's someone who explodes all those devices. I'm sure I follow them on Instagram, but I wonder if it's the same person. But no,
they've got all the components in a frame behind glass, and then they've got an explanation and a description. So the iPhone 3G, I think they say it's got something like 128 megabytes of RAM. And you think where we are today.
28 megabytes. I know. Wow.
Yeah.
I've still got an iPhone 3G somewhere in my under my bed somewhere. I have to look it up.
It might be worth a few bucks. Listen, you could auction that off and get a Vision Pro.
I don't think it's worth that much. There's too many still around.
Yeah, but there's people paying crazy money for older iPhones out there.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I reckon you should. You could have a Vision Pro waiting under your bed, John Evans.
Who's enabling who here, Bobby?
Yeah, I know, but you enabled me, but we said that we would do it together, so I've got to find a way to get you there. So get that iPhone 3G out, right?
Yeah, all right.
If anyone's actually watching this, tell me how much you think John's iPhone 3G is worth.
Yeah, leave a comment.
One person will still be here. Leave a comment. Brilliant. Right, let's leave it there. We're both knackered. It's Thursday night. We're old. No, brilliant. But iPad Pro, it's definitely a recommend if you can afford it. Yeah. And if you can't, there is an alternative. It's called the MacBook Air. I will do that video for you, lovely lot, in the next few days and get that up next week. So there we go. But for now, John, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. This has been Tailoring Talk in its transitional period as it metamorphs into whatever it's going to be. I don't even know if that's a proper word. And we will be back. Bondathon next. Ish.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.